Hello, everybody. I am out with my husband getting the weed eater fix. See, we're in the place where you get the weed eater fix. Okay, so earlier today, I had been doing some studying um, from the book of John. There was something that I was listening to it play over the TV, and it was something that was said that caught my attention. Where Jesus was talking to the Samaritan woman. But anyway, like I said, my attention was caught and I began to do some research on the Samaritans. I wanted to know who was the Samaritans and why was it that they didn't get along with the Jews. And so I decided to do some research and I did some very interesting research. I found out some amazing things and I went to try to share it with everyone. I had typed it all out and then I got to doing something else and I was getting ready to run out the door and I accidentally deleted it all. And so to type it all, I'm just not going to do it. I don't have time. So I wanted to definitely share this with everyone because I feel that it would be a blessing to your personal studies to know who these Samaritans were and why was it that they didn't get along with the Jews. So I'm going to try to go from memory and tell everyone what I learned today in my studies. First question, who was the Samaritans? What I found out is that the Samaritans are actually Israelites, just like the Jews are Israelites. So basically, these are our family members, brothers and sisters, the kids of brothers and sisters who stopped getting along, basically. Um, the Samaritans. To give you a background on the Samaritans, if I was to just say that they made up the 10 tribes of Israel, would you actually understand that? So I'm going to try to break it down the way I broke it down when I was typing it. As we all know, Abraham had a son, Isaac. Isaac had twin boys, Esau and Jacob. Jacob fought with an angel, ended up getting his name changed to Israel. Okay, so when we say the 12 tribes of Israel, we're talking about the sons of Jacob, because Jacob's name was changed to Israel and his children were called Israelites. Um, Jacob had 12 sons, and let me see, because I struggled with remembering all 12 of their names earlier when I was doing this. So I'm gonna see if I get them all now. There was Reuben, and I'm not gonna do them in any order because I can't never seem to get the birth order right just yet. So there was Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. That's 4. There was Gad, and Asher, that's 6. There was Naphtali, Zebulun, Issachar, that's 10. Joseph and Benjamin, 11 and 12. Yay, I finally got them. Okay, so uh, we got the 12 tribes. I listed the 12 tribes. Samaria. Okay, so uh, how did I break it down? The Israelites. So the Israelites. Okay, they were the people of God, chosen by God to represent Him in the earth. It was a world full of people, and these people. I'm distracted, and we know that back when God was first dealing with the people with Moses, it was said to Moses that it was too difficult for him to try to keep order among all of the tribes of Israel by himself. So judges were set up to work with him. And after Moses died, then there was Joshua who took over. And when Joshua died, God only used the judges, the prophets, and the priests to deal with the tribes of Israel. Now, of all the judges and the prophets and the priests that was alive, the greatest I found out of all of them was Samuel. Samuel actually served as judge, prophet, and priest. Out of all of them, only out of all of them, they either served as a judge or they served as a prophet or maybe they was a priest. But Samuel was all three. I found that to be amazing. Definitely wanted to share that. Samuel was judge, prophet, and priest. And you'll find that in the book of First Samuel, chapters 3 through 7, I think it was, which shows him operating in each of those offices. Okay, so I mentioned Samuel because during Samuel's reign as priest, and the reason Samuel had to operate as priest also because Samuel wasn't from that Levitical tribe, but the reason he had to operate as priest is because Eli and his two sons were killed. They were disciplined by Jehovah, they were killed. And when they died, the sons of Phineas were still little. They were young. As a matter of fact, one of the sons, Ichabod, I think his name was, his mom died giving birth to him the same day that his granddaddy Eli and his daddy Phineas died. Hophni, I don't know if he had any kids at all, so I didn't get that far. So Samuel, having been raised in the house of of Eli, he pretty much knew what to do, and so when they were put to death, he had to operate in that area with God's permission. He did that because the other boys was just too young to do it. So during that time, the people decided that they were tired of them judges because Samuel had gotten old and he was going to install his sons as judges, and people was tired of them because they was doing some crooked stuff. So they decided that they wanted a king. Samuel wasn't too fond of that, but God told them go ahead and give them what they want, and the people's choice was Saul to be their king. So God allowed it. He dealt with Saul. Saul did some messed up stuff. Saul was hard-headed. God would tell him to do one thing and he'd do something totally different. So God decided, okay, Saul is not going to be my king. God chose David. Now I'm getting back to the Samaritans, but you need to know all this background. God chose David. So again, people's choice, Saul. God's choice, David. So God chose David, and David had a heart for God. He made some mistakes. Yeah, we know that he was a womanizer. Yeah, we know that he was a murderer. We know all this stuff about him, but still, he was God's choice. Even in the midst of his mistakes, he still loved and served God to the best of his ability. So, with that being said, David had a few sons, and one of his sons was Solomon, and the kingship passed on to Solomon. Solomon was a young boy when he started to reign, and he had favor with God. He asked for wisdom, and because he chose wisdom out of all the things he could have asked for, God blessed him. So he was like the richest king, the wisest king to ever live. But Solomon started marrying a whole bunch of women of the nations, and because he did that, they lured him into following and serving their gods, and because of that, he lost favor with God. God was very mad at Solomon, very upset, disappointed with Solomon for beginning to serve all those false gods, so he decided that he was going to take from Solomon 10 of those 12 tribes and give the rulership of 10 tribes over to someone else. I'll tell you who that person was in a minute. So God decided that he was going to do that, but he said that he was going to do that. It was like just to humiliate them and to get them to turn around and to start serving him again. It wasn't something that was supposed to be permanent. So God had a prophet go out. Jeroboam is from the tribe of Ephraim. Now, Ephraim was listed as one of those 12 tribes. He is one of the two sons that Joseph had. So when you hear about the 12 tribes, you won't hear Joseph listed, and you won't hear the Levites listed because the Levites was taken as part of the priesthood. They were taken to serve God as priesthood within this nation. And so, in place of Joseph and in place of Levi, Joseph's two sons were put in. And you'll see that in the book of Genesis, I think it is, at the end of Genesis, where it'll list amongst those 12 tribes Ephraim and Manasseh. Those are the two sons of Joseph. So anyway, Jeroboam is from the tribe of Ephraim, and he worked for King Solomon. And one day he was by himself, and one of the prophets came up to him, and that prophet had on like a new coat. And the prophet took the coat off and tore it into 12 pieces. And of the 12 pieces, the prophet told Jeroboam to choose 10 of those pieces. So when Jeroboam did that, the prophet told Jeroboam that God was going to give him 10 tribes to rule as king over. And that, I'm trying to think it through, I'm trying to remember it. And this is 1 Kings chapter 11. He was told that he was going to be given 10 tribes to rule over, because God was really upset with Solomon for his behavior. But he said that he was going to humiliate them, but it wasn't going to be a permanent humiliation. It wasn't going to be indefinite. And so it didn't happen at that time. It didn't happen during Solomon's reign at all. Solomon ended up dying, and his son Rehoboam took over. Now, Rehoboam, he didn't want to listen to the counsel of the older men who counseled his dad. He chose to go listen to whatever his friends said. Dumb move. Very dumb move. Because his friends, who have never ruled a nation before, who didn't know anything about it, ill-advised him. And because they ill-advised him, the 12 tribes of Israel was broken during his rule. 10 of those tribes revolted. They went a whole different direction. Jeroboam became king over them, true to the prophecy that was given to Jeroboam. Now, in that prophecy, Jeroboam was told that one tribe was going to stay for David's sons. One tribe was going to stay, and so that tribe turned out to be Benjamin. I had to look at that, but Benjamin was from the tribe of Judah, so all of Judah was with him anyway, and so the tribe that stayed was Benjamin. So as you continue in your personal studies, you're going to read of the 2 tribes of Judah and then the 10 tribes of Israel. And so the 2 tribes will be the tribes that God allowed to stay. And you'll find that all of that happened in the book of 1 Kings, chapters 11 through 13, I think it is. 11 through 13. But you'll read about it there. Now, the 10 tribes, which was ruled over by Jeroboam, let me tell you how messed up this is. This is kind of why the Samaritans is against the Jews. The 10 tribe of Israel that was ruled over by Jeroboam, apparently Jeroboam began to like the fact that he was king. And he decided that he didn't want to give that up. It used to be that the Israelites would travel to Jerusalem to offer up their sacrifices. Jeroboam decided he didn't want them traveling up to Jerusalem anymore, which God had said that was his chosen place for the sacrifices. Jeroboam decided he didn't want them traveling up to Jerusalem anymore because he was scared that they was going to decide to go back and connect again with Rehoboam, and he didn't want them to do that. He wanted to keep the kingship. So he set up 2 places for them to go. One was Bethel, the other was a place called Dan. And he set those 2 places up for them to go to worship, and he told them that it'd be a lot easier for them to worship there. That way they didn't have to make that long travel down to Jerusalem. he was messed up for that. He was on some slick stuff when he did that. Also, there was a festival. There was several festivals that the Israelites as a whole were supposed to keep. So Jeroboam, one of the festivals was on the 15th day of the 8th month. They were supposed to come together and worship. And Jeroboam, even though he had decided to keep that festival and for them to worship over where they were worshiping at, which was Bethel and Dan. But it was not the place where God said that he wanted to be worshipped at. Keep that in mind. God chose Jerusalem. So one of the big arguments between the Samaritans and the Jews is where to worship. The Samaritans worshipped at a place called Mount Gerizim, something like that. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. And the Jews worshipped at Jerusalem. And so that is like a big argument as far as where to worship. But that all stemmed from what Jeroboam did. And let's see, what else about these Samaritans? I think that's it. I think that's as far as I had gotten with the notes. But that should help you with your Bible study to know who they are. They are related. They are cousins. Or not cousins. They're related. They're all Israelites. All of them, Jews and Samaritans. Oh, this is what I was going to share also, and this is what I found amazing. I have been doing some studying previous to all of this about righteousness when I've been studying about Noah and what set him apart. And one of the scriptures that I was taken to was in Ephesians, and then there was some scriptures in Romans. I can't remember which one in specific, but it was talking about how Jesus was going to break down that wall of division. And so you see the first breakdown in the book of, that's, as a matter of fact, what brought me to all of this, the study about the Samaritans. It was in the book of John, and I think I was reading chapter 5, I'm not sure. But in the book of John, it began to bring up the Samaritans, and I began to study about that and learn that first division, or that first wall that Jesus broke down, was the wall between the Samaritans and the Jews. And I come to find that as I read further in the book of Acts, that, what's that, Acts the 2nd chapter? Dang, I don't remember where I was reading it. But in the book of Acts, it showed that the Christian Jews and the Samaritan Jews were treated as equal. Jesus had tore down that wall, and that set the stage for the next wall to be broken down, which would be the wall between the Jews and the Gentiles. And all of that was important to me because as I was doing that study about Noah and his day, what I come to find is that the next wall that is being broken down in our day. And that wall is the wall that is set up between Christians and the world. Stay tuned for that. This is going on now. All right. Bye.